Thanks, Angus. Just want to talk to you a little bit about the work that's happening within the Scotland Food and Drink Partnership, and while Colin started talking about sort of trade and policy, bringing that further back home, back into Scotland, and looking at an economic development perspective of what's happening within the Scottish Partnership. Scotland Food and Drink are a membership organisation. We have over 350 processing members. Many of you in the room are members of our organisation. We have also 100 support and supply companies as well. We have all the major, or will by the end of this month, hopefully have all the major retailers and all the major food service companies within the UK as our members. We bring together the butchers, the bakers, the seafood companies, the salmon company, the drinks companies, and align beside that the Scottish Government and its economic development agencies through Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands Enterprise, Skills Development Scotland, Zero Waste Scotland are there as well. So over the last 2 years ago, that group, through our facilitation leadership, came together to create Ambition 2030, an ambitious roadmap for the food and drink industry in Scotland. Our ambition, and we believe if everything works and pulls together in a fair tailwind, we have the potential to double the value of, not necessarily the size, but the value, the turnover of the food and drink industry in Scotland. Since then, I've been working closely and supporting each of the individual trade organisations to look at their own sector strategies. So we have one for venison, we've got fruit and vegetables in there, we've got a dairy sector strategy, aquaculture, and Patrick, who I think maybe has just left the room very shortly, will hopefully fill the last piece of the jigsaw in with a sector strategy for the wild-caught seafood sector. Putting all that work into a single slide, really encapsulating our focus. We were doing this around about the time that the prospect of a referendum was coming up and Brexit potentially. A few people said we were mad to think about it. It feels a wee bit maybe mad today to be standing here thinking what are our opportunities, but I think that stood us in good stead, and it was Philip Hammond at the time had said the country needs to get Brexit ready, the company needs to get Brexit fit. And I think irrespective of what happens through the rest of this afternoon, tonight and over the next few weeks, I think the markets that we play in will change and evolve. But we took some quite strong messages back from the consultation when we were developing this, that it's not all about exports. There's a lot more work to be done at home, and you'll hopefully see through the next few slides that we're focusing a lot more on what can be done within the UK market and what also can be done within the home market in Scotland. And again, irrespective of where we trade, we need to build our reputation as the land of food and drink. We've talked about investment within the industry quite a lot over the last 2 days, and building that reputation and investor confidence is really important, and also in terms of attracting new customers and buyers at home and also abroad. The key pillars of looking at supply chain, if we're going to be a lot more responsible and streamlined in what we do and more resource efficient, that work has to come with whole supply chain approaches. We need to be a more innovative industry, so driving innovation, and Rachel from the Make Innovation Happen initiative, our posters here, so if you're interested in a single-stop shop of how to support a company to be more innovative in Scotland, that's a really good example of what's happening, and we've had lots of conversations already about peoples and skills and the need for new people within the industry. The export work, it's been talked about quite a lot yesterday and today, so and given we're coming towards the end of the day, I will skip through pretty quickly. But why is it of interest? If you look at the map of where we are with food exports around the world, we are very European-centric. Flick forward to see where whisky are doing. They have a much greater diversified position around the world. So there are opportunities and doors that these people can open for us, and we've signed a collaboration with the Scotch Whisky Association to help to support other sectors within the wider food and drink family to increase their exports. And that was one of the main reasons in this creation of the family of in-market experts that both Patrick talked about yesterday and Mr. Ewing referred to this morning. So people who are at your beck and call around the world to help you. It's not just helping the individual trade organisations, but they also do one-to-one company work as well. They're all going to be back, a couple of plugs, they'll all be back in June, and I think it will be back in Shire Grange, so there'll be one-to-one surgeries for individual companies, or there'll be a trade organisation stay as well, so people will get a chance to come in and interact with them and get greater insight into the markets. But it's not just about that. I don't really maybe expect you to be able to read that from this distance, but If you take the top of this slide, that's just the in-market specialist projects and the key markets that we've identified. There's significant other activities that we do and need to do to develop our exports. We have a joint market programme looking at how we match up beef and seafood and our craft beer and our craft gin, etc., and trying to maximise the cooperation between those different segments. And Patrick mentioned surf and turf yesterday. I don't think that would have happened with Quality Meat Scotland 2 or 3 years ago, but facilitation and getting these people around the table and talking together has strengthened that Team Scotland approach. Emerging exporters, existing exporters and mature exporters, they all need slightly different levels of support. So as we develop this programme, or the second phase of this work, we need to think about how we look after individual needs. Inward missions as well can be controversial if there's already mature relationships with buyers in existing markets. But where they have worked well is where the type of work that Patrick referred to in terms of bringing journalists in. And we had the Federation of Scottish Chefs over a couple of years ago, letting them see the full extent and breadth of the Scottish seafood offering that we have around the world. Work was starting to happen already on certification and logistics and getting product to market. I think the Brexit problems have accelerated that, but there's still more to do. And many of you in the room will be only too aware of the differentiation in terms of pricing through export certification of local authorities, etc. So how do we try and standardise that? And another piece of that jigsaw that Colin mentioned is export finance. It came to the fore a bit when Russia closed their borders to particularly the pelagic sector, and it got a bit more recognition in Scotland, but there's certainly a lot more to do to tap into that area. And the other big plug, showcasing Scotland in Gleneagles, bringing 125 buyers, sort of roughly half and half from around the world, other half from the UK, and about 125 companies. We did it 2 years ago. It generated about £60 million of additional sales. It's just one very massive speed dating session, but as I say, it's not all about exports, so we're very conscious of that. And just last autumn, we started to build up our activity and looking at the home market as well. It's very important, both looking after the customers that we already have, but trying to explore and find new customers at home. So 3 sort of very top-level elements in that strategy that all sort of link together, but this work, which I say is just getting going. We're looking at sort of insights. So who are our customers? Where do they exist? Where are the market opportunities? We've got very strong insighting support within Seafish, some within Seafood Scotland, and again, we've got that within Scotland Food and Drink. Strategic relationships, who are the key customers, and let's build some strategic and long-term relationships with them. Our chairman, Dennis Overton, will say that he wants Scotland to be the best place to have a food and drink business or to do food and drink business with, and we would see that strategic relationship as part of the latter of that. And it's mapping ambition, and some companies will just want to trade locally, trade across the whole of Scotland, trade across the whole of the UK. So what do they want to do, and how can we match them the best support and services? And then looking at capabilities, so I'll come back onto that in terms of companies with innovation and getting them to compete more effectively, and then a number of different sales development mechanisms that I'll come on to. So in terms of some of the capacity building work, mentioned market insights already, we believe that the whole area of health and wellness and well-being is a really important market for the Scottish industry. We've commissioned some research along with Scottish Enterprise in this area. Claire had mentioned earlier, a big thing in North America about high protein foods. So seafood fits really well with that. It's that high protein, low carb, the fuller, longer whole area. The veganism and flexitarianism, pescatarianism, the move away from red meat creates opportunities for everybody in the room. And likewise, even with some of these plant-based diets, bringing some of those key sort of things, quinoa, beetroot, etc., the kale that's getting interest in this segment, thinking those who are making ready meals and things like that, preparing things for the food service sector, how do you pull some of that stuff in? Food to go and snacks and healthy versions of that, really, really keen. So again, we'll be looking at how we develop support to industry and companies in the coming months and years in that area. And then BRC and Salsa, we talked about our reputation and our brand. It's hard to build it up, very easy to strip it back down. So what are the technical competencies that companies need either to protect our brand or also to compete more effectively in a home and an international market? And just before Christmas, we launched a BRC and a Salsa support scheme to help companies to get accreditation in both those areas. We've talked about people in the industry a lot, and it's the number one thing that we're getting fed back from our members is the whole challenges with recruitment, but we're starting to look at it slightly differently. Once we pay all that money and efforts to get them into the business, can we do things more effectively to retain them within our business? So we're working with Skills Development Scotland, Scottish Enterprise, Highlands and Islands to look at a recruitment and retention toolkit and some tips and good guides for companies to play in that area. And then refreshing to see from Mike and Jonas, a lot of coverage already today about the whole Industry 4.0, robotics, the Internet of Things, big data, etc. So again, an area that we're keen to see greater and further uptake within the industry in that area. So what are some of the activation things that we're doing? A couple of examples recently launched by Mr. Ewing at the Scottish Parliament, an ASDA Supplier Development Academy. So ticking a number of the boxes, strengthening our strategic relationship with ASDA, to work with a group of companies. We'll start with maybe about 40 existing ASDA suppliers from Scotland. We'll flag those up to them, they already know them, and they'll narrow that down, but we'll provide support and funding to allow ASDA and a number of other agencies to come in and help to build the company capability, and that has very much got a very direct pull through within sales. Colleagues have worked recently with Waitrose, so if you go into Waitrose, if you're lucky enough to have one near you and look at their craft beer offering, significantly better than it was a couple of years ago, and that was about just introducing to Waitrose the range and depth of craft beer companies that have in Scotland and leaving them to do the business once we made the introductions. The home market as well, a piece of research here, looking at menu descriptors in London and how a menu was described, and then what the price of that main plate was. And you'll see fourth from the end is the word Scottish. So a significant recognition of the Scottish proposition within the London market, and that's an area that we want to try and build on further as well. And we've had some colleagues facilitating a trade mission down to casual dining in Excel. It was quite drink heavy in terms of representation, so if there are any seafood companies or you know of any that would be interested in this market, please get them along and get them involved. Another colleague just back from the Northern Restaurant and Bar show, just having a walk around and look around, and similar feel. It does seem to be sort of quite drink-centric, but we're continually looking and scouting at opportunities where we can represent Scotland, Team Scotland, at these various events to target the home market. And bringing it a little bit closer to home again, local sourcing. So we carried out a survey where we looked at 1,000 Scottish and 1,000 UK consumers and asked them a lot of questions, and this one relevant to the importance of local sourcing. The rest of the UK is in blue bars, and the Scottish consumers, their responses in orange. And we can see, surprise, surprise, Scottish people like to see Scottish produce in their restaurants, hotels, and in their shops. And dairy, red meat, poultry, fish and shellfish, fruit and veg, bakery goods, and maybe a bit of a tail off seems to be less important within the sort of original sourcing of beer, etc., and soft drinks. So again, gives us confidence to think about doing more. That showcase that we talked about at Gleneagles, lots of feedback saying it's very, very good, but why is it all to do with international or UK buyers? Let's do something closer to home. So we took that model out on the road, and we did the first regional showcasing in Glasgow about 18 months ago. On average, we've done further ones in Tayside, Inverness, just completed one in Murrayfield, and we're looking to do one in the northeast very, very shortly, and then there'll be a further one sort of around Stirling or central area. About 70 buyers and 70 suppliers in a day. Again, that speed dating concept, quite a good representation from both retail, specialty retail, and food service in terms of buying coming along to these events. And then Scott Hot. We've been in and out of Scott Hot as Team Scotland over the years, but again, this renewed focus in the home market, there's representation there, maybe more sort of hospitality and chef's focus, as many of you will know within that segment. And then opportunities with the tourist industry as well. What's the win-win there? So a piece of work from Visit Scotland. What do visitors do? Well, we know they sleep and stay somewhere, and we know that they eat and drink when they're in Scotland. So, and 90% on average of people who come to Scotland want to dine out. But more importantly, I think, is that the European visitors and visitors from the rest of the world are specifically interested and wanting to try local food when they come here. So what do they think of our food? So again, the same segments. There's 2 bars. The blue bars at the bottom indicate their expectations of Scottish food and drink before they arrived. The beige-coloured brown bars are their realisation of what it was after they left. So the good news is that we're doing a good job in exceeding their expectation. The rather worrying thing is, particularly with the Europeans, is what's their expectations before they come, and actually will they come if they think that our food and drink offering in this country is just quite so lousy. So what do we do about it? So we've been working over the last year with the Scottish Tourism Alliance, looking at a food tourism strategy for Scotland. And again, you know, with the launch of Ambition 2030, a lot of these things are still in very early days, but we're getting going. Those tourists will spend 20 pence in the pound in food and drink when they come. How do we make that 25 or 30? And how do we get a lot more tourists coming to the country? And the reverse and joined up piece of this is if we get more tourism coming in, we get more flights, which then helps to ease some of the solutions that we're trying to find on our export work in terms of extra plane capacity coming into the country. So there's a definite win-win and within all this work. The whisky trade do it so well. So what can we learn from them? What can we leverage in terms of what they do? It's about having the right venues, the right destinations. There's a big piece in terms of skills within the area as well. So part of the reason why we are not getting enough local food sold and imported food sold in this place is the inability of front of house staff to be able to uptrade and tell the story. So a significant investment will happen in getting that right. Hazel's given me a 2-minute warning. I've got a video that I want to show you, but in terms of national branding, Scottish labelling is very important, as again, no surprise, very important to the home market. Maybe less so when we look at how it's compared with other. We ask people what they thought of the Scottish proposition. So that leads us to think about what have we done. So about 5-6 years ago, every food and drink sector in Scotland were marketing themselves completely differently. We co-developed this branding, and you see maybe yesterday, that's what it looks like, be it fruit and veg, be it bakery, be it dairy. So we're beginning to sort of market ourselves a bit more effectively together. But it's still a competitive area, and we think of what Ireland have done in terms of Origin Green, and you know, New Zealand just do this thing so well. I think we need to think about what's happening again on our national branding. So there's a significant development happening in Scotland with Visit Scotland, Scottish Government, Scottish Development International, a programme called an initiative called Scotland Is Now. I'm just going to show you a 1-minute video that they have produced, and then maybe just leave you a couple of questions and thoughts on it.
Now is a place where hope calls home. Now is compassion and freedom to roam. Now builds bridges, now breaks down walls. Now is new thinking, now gives its all. Now is the heart, the soul and the head. Now is the town you'll want to paint red. Now makes the future, now bangs the drum. Now is the welcome for all those who come. Now is silence and breathtaking sights. Now bucks the trend. Now fights for rights. Now is new jobs. Now inspires youth. Now faces up to an inconvenient truth. Now more than ever is what the world needs. Now is the hope that our country feeds. There is no waiting. Scotland is now.
So, impressive video, professionally produced, significant amounts of money going behind that. It's fantastic if you want to invest in Scotland, if you want to visit Scotland, live in Scotland, or come and be educated in Scotland. But what would an outward projection of that campaign look like? And is our current country branding, the Land of Food and Drink branding, ready for a quick review? So that's something which, again, we want to try and spend some time over the rest of this year having a dialogue. Colin has mentioned the great brand as well. So how do we get those two things working together for the greater benefit of the industry within Scotland? So like all the other speakers, please, I'm around for the rest of the afternoon, albeit that's getting shorter. But please come up and have a chat, or any questions, just come see me afterwards.